Out of all the organizations in the world, NASA, without a doubt, is one of the coolest. Who can look at the awesome pictures from the Hubble Space Telescope or watch a video of a rocket launch and not get excited about spaceflight? But like most things in the world, NASA has some dark secrets that it'd rather you not know about. Whether they make NASA less or more cool is up to you to decide. The 1986 Challenger explosion shocked the world. We had become so complacent with the idea of space travel that seeing the shuttle blow up on live TV was something we couldn't even comprehend. The tragedy was bad enough. What's worse was NASA knew it was going to happen. Rockets are big tubes of explosive fuel. They are under tremendous stress during launch, so engineers have to make them perfect. No component can be subpar, even down to the screws and seals. An important part of the shuttle's rocket boosters was their O-ring seals, which kept key joints in the rockets together. O-rings are made out of rubber, which, though strong, is susceptible to temperature changes. Before the 1986 launch, the contractors who designed Challenger's O-rings realized that a recent cold spell had ruined them. Engineer Roger Boishley knew the rings wouldn't hold. He called up NASA to tell them that the space shuttle would blow up, and they had to delay the launch. NASA refused. Poor Boishley went home knowing that the astronauts were going to die. The next day they did. For years afterward, Boishley blamed himself for the explosion, running over the events and punishing himself. But everybody else knew the truth. Boishley wasn't to blame. NASA killed their own astronauts. NASA might be a beacon of hope and peace today, but in its infancy, it was led by the exact polar opposite, a Nazi. And not just any Nazi, but one of the best Nazi rocket scientists of World War II, Wernher von Braun. During the war, von Braun was in charge of developing Nazi rockets, specifically the V-2 missiles used against the United Kingdom. To make matters worse, he oversaw forced labor from concentration camps to build the terror weapons. Yeah, not off to a good start. After the war, the victorious countries wanted to get their hands on that sweet Nazi rocket tech, so they kidnapped whichever scientists they could get their hands on and brought them to their countries. The United States lucked out and got von Braun, which is like finding a holographic Nazi Charizard in a Pokémon starter deck. Von Braun got to work with NACA, the precursor to NASA. When NACA turned into NASA and the United States got serious about the space race, von Braun got to work on the Saturn rocket, which shot American astronauts to the moon. He is one of the most important rocket scientists in history and completely revolutionized spaceflight in his time with NASA. Historians still debate whether von Braun was a hero, a villain, or something in between, based on how much say he had in the forced labor projects. It's an interesting thought experiment. Do the good deeds somebody does later in life outweigh the evil they did earlier? Is he a hero just because he ended up working for our side? Thankfully, none of us will ever be in the place he was in, forced to work for the Nazis, so it's really hard to pass judgment. Still, NASA would rather downplay the Nazi foundation of their rockets. Space travel is awesome, but NASA realizes that staring out in the vast expanses of nothingness while being cooped up in metal cans for long periods of time might aggravate some previously undetected anxiety issues. If an astronaut goes Major Tom and does something crazy, NASA has a plan. We'd expect some crazy supercomputer-powered, vacuum-proof, multi-million-dollar technological solution. Nope, it's just duct tape. Astronauts can't use stun guns in space or any sort of weapons that use projectiles. Those weapons risk damaging important tech in the space station or even punching a hole in the capsules. If an astronaut loses it, the others just have to restrain him. Standard operating procedure tells astronauts to restrain the crazy person with duct tape, tie them down with bungee cords, and inject them with tranquilizers if absolutely necessary. There is some sort of comforting simplicity to their approach. Duct tape is so dependable that there is no way that the astronauts can mess up using it. But the only thing keeping a crazy astronaut from taking over the International Space Station and declaring it his space empire is a lowly roll of tape. We understand people messing up on complex differential equations, but NASA scientists should at least know basic mathematics like how to convert units. Right? In 1999, NASA launched the Mars Climate Orbiter. This was a groundbreaking mission. The Mars Climate Orbiter was designed to study the planet's weather conditions, atmospheric composition, and do a ton of other experiments. Getting a satellite to perfectly orbit the Earth is a hard enough problem mathematically. Imagine shooting a satellite from Earth and perfectly putting it into orbit around another planet. That's insanely complex. If the satellite got too low in the Martian atmosphere, the friction would burn it up, and the multi-million-dollar satellite would be lost forever. NASA had to get everything perfect. But when the orbiter got to Mars and fired its thrusters to enter the Martian orbit, the craft started going way too fast and plowed into the surface of the planet. NASA freaked out. After tons of reviewing the mission, they realized what the mistake was. Somebody programmed the computer flight control software to calculate the thrust in the English unit of pounds instead of the metric unit of newtons. With that little mistake, all the other flight control calculations were off, and the orbiter crashed. Since then, the fiasco has turned into a cautionary tale for physics students worldwide about checking units. Science fiction movies don't really spend much time focusing on how astronauts pee, but it is an ordeal. Without gravity to help in aiming, urine can go everywhere. As NASA started sending up astronauts for longer missions, they had to come up with a way for their boys to go pee. Trial and error was the order of the day, and they almost lost a spaceship from it. Gordon Cooper flew the last Mercury flight on May 15, 1963. NASA gave him a new collection device to let him urinate during the 34-hour mission. Afterward, systems on the ship started failing. Cooper couldn't figure out what was going on for hours before realizing that the pee bag had sprung a leak. His own urine had betrayed him, shorting out systems all over the ship. He had to make a hair-raising, white-knuckled manual re-entry. Landing the capsule without ground control was insanely dangerous, and something only a half-dozen pilots could do. Thankfully, he made it, so NASA never had to explain how they lost a spacecraft from pee. This was the untold truth of NASA. I will see you at the next video with another story just like this. Until next time.